In this video, we're going to look at how you can use the Visual Form Builder plugin to create a form on your website. So what we're going to do is, as you can see, we're logged into the dashboard. We're going to go down and select the Visual Form Builder plugin area. And let's go ahead and just go straight to add new form. All right, once that's loaded, you are led to a page where you can add some of the, kind of meta information, if you want to call it, for the form. So the first one is the name of the form, which your website visitors actually won't see. So, just use a label that will make sense to you. So we're going to just say volunteer application. And then add the name of your company or organization or your name. In this case, I'm just going to, use our business name here. And next, the reply to email. So this is where your emails will go to. So I'm going to go ahead and just add my sort of generic email address here. Okay. And then email subject, a new volunteer applied. And I'm going to repeat that email again. So just to distinguish between these two things, so this is the email address where the form data will go to, and then this is the email address that will show up if you set up a confirmation email to send out to, in this case, volunteers who have submitted an application on your website. So slight distinction there, and oftentimes they'll probably be the same, but it's nice to know that you can assign different ones if you want to. So I hit create form. So now that we're here, we've got just the basic default setup. So this field set here is the title that your users are actually going to see. So I'm going to write something that's nice and user-friendly, like thanks for signing up to volunteer. All right. Then at this point, you can add instructions if you want to on how to, fill out the form. Otherwise, please be aware that this form will be embedded in a WordPress page, so you can always put content above the form itself, which is kind of nice. But the instructions option is there if you want it. And then next I'm going to show you, different options for different fields that they have sort of pre-programmed into the system and how to use them. So first, let's take a look at just some of the most basic ones. So you're always going to want, an email address for the person who's submitting that form so that you can get in touch with them. So they actually have a custom-made email type here. And what's nice about that is that you can actually use that custom made type to detect whether or not people are filling it out properly. So if they put something in there that doesn't look like an email address, it will detect that, which is great. We're going to require this, obviously, because we want to make sure to get it. You can also write little descriptions for each of the fields or data entry points questions you're asking people, which is kind of nice if you have specific questions that pertain to that specific field. So pretty handy there. I'm just going to ignore that though, because most people, they get what email is and what that's all about, so that's pretty easy. So we've got email. So for collecting additional information like an address, for instance, they do have an address block as well. You might find that the address block doesn't meet your needs necessarily, so it's really up to you about whether or not you want to use it. But that being said, let's just try it out for now. So you can pre-populate a default country, so that's kind of nice. Some of those fields that come with address blocks can sometimes be kind of onerous if they don't allow you to do those sort of pre-selections. So I'm going to say that this is required as well for our purposes. All right, and again, we have the option to add a description. And then let's see, next we can add, just a simple text area for more descriptive content. So this would be, for like a little essay question or something like that. Text, on the other hand, is a single line of content. So if you just have a question that can be answered in just a sentence, you can do that. And just to clarify, you're going to be adding your questions to this little name field right here. All right. And then other options, we've got radio button. So radio options you want to use, generally speaking, if you only have one option that you'd like people to select. So we might say, for instance, which program would you like to work or volunteer within? And I could say you can select only one. So we might have food packing or back office help or things like that. You can actually also add or delete more options. So I just hit this button to delete an option. You can also hit that button to add an extra one there. Pretty handy. You can also grab these and kind of shift them around depending on where you want them as well. Although unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be cooperating with me right now. Usually that does work, so I'm not quite sure why that's not operating, but just FYI, there is that option there. Okay, great. Next, you've got things like checkboxes. So this is obviously for situations where you want people to be able to select more than one option. So if we only had volunteers coming in on Wednesdays, let's see, Thursdays and Fridays, we might only have those options there, but they could select multiple days because again, it is a checkbox, which is great. And then things that are more advanced, they do have things, for instance, like this sort of drop menu option, which you can use, very similar to the layout of the check and radio question options. There's also things like currency and number and phone number that you can use. The advantage, again, of using these very specific types is that the system is smart enough to actually detect whether or not people are entering data that conforms to that type of data. So if someone enters words in like the phone field, it will throw up an error, which is kind of nice. It can be annoying though if people don't understand, for instance, that they need to, if they were entering a birth date and you wanted them to use this number option, they could be confused about that if you don't, describe in the description that that's what they're looking for, or you could use the date thing. All right, so you can also allow people to add URLs and even submit HTML if you wanted to in the form. Finally, you can also have people upload files as well. Although I should warn you that depending on the hosting company that you have, there may be file size limitations to, the size of things that can be uploaded to your website using this manner. So just be aware that if you have a file upload need, it might be more effective to actually have people send you something via email. So just FYI on that, that does not always work perfectly because of host settings, and also sometimes because of, just basic WordPress default settings that limit the size of files for usability reasons. Okay, cool. So that is an overview of, most of these options here. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to add this to a page. So I'm going to save this form. And we are going to go and add this to a page on the site. So I'm going to pretend that we're going to add this to a new page. So I'm just going to create a new page. So this is pretty cool. It's pretty easy to add this option. You can actually hit that little add form button and then select from this drop list which form you'd like to add to the page. Now what you notice is that actually adds what's called a shortcode to the page. A shortcode is anything within these brackets, and they're often used with WordPress plugins to allow you to add additional features to a specific page. So, you can use this little add form button. You can also just straight up, type this into a page if you know the ID of the form that you're trying to access. All right, so let's see how that looks. So I'm going to save draft for this page, and we're going to preview it. All right, so as you can see, we've got our form here. And what I like about this form is that it does, work relatively well within a mobile optimized site. You can see how it shrinks. That's another reason why I like this specific tool. All right, cool. So we've got our email, we've got our address, we've got a text area, text question, and then we've got our radio buttons here. As you can see, they can only select one. Checklist, they can select multiple ones, and then our little drop-down list as well. Now, I will say at this point, you can click submit. Now, because we're logged into the site, what we don't see is that there is a little verification step that people have to walk through, basically, to submit information. This is not necessarily a bad thing. The verification task is very simple. They just have to write or type in 2 numerical numbers into a text box and then click submit. The reason why they have that verification step is to try to prevent spammers from, spamming your website with crappy information, which will happen, unfortunately, just as par for the course with your websites. So that is a nice, simple, user-friendly way to do verification with real human users. And I've been using this a lot and have never gotten complaints with that type of verification. So pretty easy as far as verification steps go. So again, that would be at the bottom just before the submit button. Okay, great. So that's kind of the simple setup options. I'm also going to show you in this next video how you can set up some fancy pants communications options so that people can receive verifications for the information that they send to you, which is very nice. So stay tuned for that.